Hey y'all, hey, I'm back again with another video. It's your girl Willow Nicole back here with y'all today. So today is gonna be a little something different. I'm gonna do more of a personal experience type of video, and then this is for people who have gone through the same situation or are currently in the situation right now. Maybe this could be something inspirational or motivational that you guys needed to hear to get you through what you're going through currently. Okay, so before I start this video, I just want to tell y'all to comment on this video, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join the YouTube family. Oh, and don't forget to turn that post notification bell on so you're always notified on what's going on here on the channel. All right guys, so thank y'all for watching this video and let's get into it. Okay, so about almost 7 years ago, I was a young mom, a single mother. I had Dontrell and Martine. They were babies. I broke up with their dad because I was in a domestic situation. He wasn't the best for me and was not the best for the kids. I actually was pregnant with Martine when my domestic event happened, and that's going to be a different story for another day. But they were younger when this happened to me. So back in 2018, I had just moved into my first place. I had a townhouse, a 2-bedroom townhouse. It was really nice for me and my 2 kids, Dontrell and Martine. You know, I had been there for a couple months. I think Dontrell was about 16 months, and then Martine was like going on 11 weeks when this incident happened. So fast forward, we had moved into our townhome after I got out of the domestic violence shelter. I moved into my townhome. We was there for a couple months, and then I was messing around with this guy at the time, and I kind of think he had something to do with what happened, but I was messing around with this guy. Then he leaves my house just like abruptly on this. We're going fast forward. I was hanging out with him, and then he leaves. He's like, oh, my friend, his car broke down on the side of the highway. He wants me to go help him. I was like, oh, where's he at? He was like, oh, he's an hour away in Indiana. So I guess he went off to Indiana to help his friend. I'm telling y'all, he left at like 5. Okay, so he leaves, right? I'm like with my kids and stuff, you know. Martine's an infant. Dontrell's, you know, about 16 months old. We up in our house, we minding our business. 8:30 rolls around, right? Okay, I hear a knock at my door. So I'm going downstairs. I open the door. It's a motherfucking cop at my door. It's a police officer and a CPS worker. So, you know, I had to talk to them. I really don't trust CPS workers, but I had to talk to them. So then she's like, oh, she's reading me the allegations because somebody had called on me with some allegations. So she read the allegations, and then she told me I had to go do an emergency well child visit. So I went up to the ER. She said, you have like 24 hours to get it done. So I was like, all right, roger that. So the next morning I got up, I took both my babies, and I walked all the way across town, sweating and everything, because it was the summertime and it was hot, but I got it done. The doctor said, the ER physician was like, oh, they're fine, this and that. So then this physician, it was a male physician, he was like, I just want to let you know that you see these little spots on your son, blah blah blah. I was like, yeah, I see them. And he's like, these are called Mongolian spots. And I'm like, okay. He was like, yeah, I just want you to know because you're like African American, and then, you know, not a lot of people around here know about Mongolian spots. You know, I don't want you to get caught up in somebody say like you did something to your kid. And I was like, okay. So I put that in my head because I lived in like a majority of the town was white. So like there were black people that lived there, but like most of everybody that lived in this town was white. So he told me about that and briefly educated me on that. So I got home and I looked it up, you know, and it's common in African Americans. And I think like it said like 10% of white kids or 5% of white kids could have Mongolian spots. So, and Mongolian spots usually are outer hand and then like on top of like your baby's bottom, like up, like the lower back near the butt crack. You know, you can have like your baby can have Mongolian spots, and then like the front part of their feet has Mongolian spots too. But like so I went home, I looked it up, and I got my little education on it, and I was like, all right, roger that. So then they had a doctor's appointment like with a regular physician. So you know, I'm always up with the shots, up with the well child visits and stuff. So I let her know what he said, and she was like, yep, this is what it's called, blah blah blah. And I was like, can you put that in the notes? She was like, yep. So she put that in the notes. It was on a record. So then the caseworker, obviously she is informed that they got their visit, and she was like, okay, good. So then she walked away. I didn't hear from her. About a week later, after this first allegation, I was sitting on my phone one day. We had just woke up, and then it was like the county fair. I was like, oh shoot, the county fair is going on, the first day of the fair. I'm about to call my friend to see if she want to go to the fair or whatever, because I had some money and I wanted to take my kids to the fair, and I didn't have a ride. So me and my friend that I was kicking it with back at the time I wanted to know if she was going to want to go to the fair with me. So I pick up my phone. I call her. She didn't answer. And then I kind of like briefly scrolled through my phone. Meanwhile, my son, Dontrell, is jumping on the bed, you know, and my bed's kind of high up off the ground a little bit. He jumping, and I say, no, buddy, sit down, baby, sit down. No jumping on the bed. His brother, Martine, so this is like my bed. Martine was below in his little infant car seat. He was sleeping. And then I had the fan kind of like facing downward near Martine's car seat. And then he had a baby blanket on top of him because the fan was like right in his way. So I didn't want him to get sick from the fan being like directly on him. So I put a blanket on top of him, and he was sleeping. So I tell Dontrell, no, buddy, sit down, don't jump. And he's, jumping a little bit, and I know he's jumping, and I sit him down, and then I go to place my phone underneath my pillow back on the charger. So while I turn like this and place my phone back on the charger and set my pillow back on top of my phone, all I see is him falling over the side of the bed, and I could not grab him in time. He had jumped and fell over by the time I was able to lock eyes on him again. So then he falls. Martine starts crying because he woke him up. Dontrell falls on top of him. Mind you, Martine is 11 weeks. Dontrell is about 16 months old, and obviously he's like 20 pounds or more compared to an infant. So he jumps on top of him. He lands right on his chest. Mind you, the car seat was buckled too. So then I'm like, no, buddy, I said don't jump, blah, blah, blah. So then I place him back on the bed, and I said, sit there, do not move. Mommy has to help Martine, because Martine he was like sounding funny to me. So I pick up Martine, and I get him out of his car seat, and then I go to pick him up. I take the blanket off, and then I unbuckle him and everything, and then I sit down on the side of the bed. And then Dontrell's like sitting next to me, and he's just looking on as I'm like trying to help Martine. And so like he just looked weird. His face was like pinkish, and then he just was like limp. Oh my God, this part gets really tough. He was like really limp. He was like in and out of consciousness. He would wake up, smile, and then like fall right back into like unconsciousness, and I couldn't keep him alert. And then he got real stiff on me, and then his lips was like getting darker, and then like bubbles was in his mouth. So I got scared, And I was like, oh my gosh. And then in my mind, I'm thinking about that allegation that I got not even a week prior. I'm like, oh shit, I'm fucked. Like, if I call the ambulance, they gonna take my kids away from me. But it's like, I couldn't let Martine like die. And I knew that I didn't do nothing wrong. I just looked away, and within the time of me looking away, my son falls. So I had to call 911. They came. A police officer came first before the ambulance came. A police officer came, and he's like, oh, what's wrong with him, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm explaining it. But while I'm on the 911 call, I'm like, oh, my God, something's wrong with my baby. He's this, blah, blah. And I told him about, like, his brother and everything. And then, so, like, I'm like, I don't know if he's going to die. Please, somebody, send somebody. Please help me. I think he's gonna die. And then the cop comes. I open the door. Martine was in this bassinet, and then I'm like, please help him, officer. I think he's gonna die. I can't keep him alert. He keeps like, I think I said like passing out or fainting or whatever. He's not responding. So the cop goes up there and he's like, what's his name? And I say his name is Martine. So he takes his hand, his finger, and he goes, Martine, Martine. And Martine is like gripping his hand. And Martine would come back. He would be alert. But then like he would go out of it again. And I'm like, look. Because the officer kept calling me bluff, saying like, oh, he's fine, mom, he's fine. And I was like, look. And at that time, the officer saw him like go unconscious. His lips began to bubble up again. There was like blood coming out of the bubbles. And then so the ambulance get there, as the officer is finally seeing what's wrong with him. They check him. They're like, Mom, we got to get him to the hospital. Would you sign this consent form for us to transport? And I was like, yes. Could somebody wait? I got to get somebody to take my older son because I couldn't take him. And they said, no, Mom, he needs to get to the hospital as soon as possible. So I signed the consent form. They take him. Like, I didn't even get to ride with him. And he had to ride about 20 minutes down the road to like the nearest hospital. Because he was in like critical, I guess, condition. And so then I called my kids' godparents. They're godparents now, but at that time they were like a respite family for us. But they're godparents now. So I called them and they was like, what happened? And I told them. So then like we get the car packed up. I pack up a diaper bag and everything. I get all my medical information for Martine, like my insurance card and my ID. I just bring my whole purse, my phone charger, and we just out the door. Boom. Dontrell's loaded in the car and we driving in 20 minutes to the hospital. And then so like we finally get to the hospital, and I just remember getting there to the front entrance and to the ER, and as I'm getting out the car, I look over and I look at Dontrell. I'm like, this part is so hard, but I'm like, Mommy loves you, buddy. I'll be back for you, okay? I just gotta go help Martine, you know, he's hurt, but I'll be back. Mommy will be back for you. And then I kissed him. And then I go into the hospital, and then I meet Martine in the ER. They had him in a trauma bay. And I see him, and then the doctors had already taken him out of his seat, and then they told me that I could hold him and everything. And like, I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with him. They said that he had like blood and fluid in his lungs. And then so he ends up like going through the ER, and they questioning me, and I'm trying to keep my story straight, but I'm panicking. But deep inside, I know like reality set in, like they're gonna take your kids. So I already knew that. So I'm explaining to the doctors and the nurses what happened. So after a while, after they got the scans and x-rays and stuff on him. He ends up getting admitted. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit because I don't want this video to be too long, but he gets admitted to the children's hospital part of the big hospital, because they had a children's hospital inside of the main hospital. So he's on the children's floor, the peds floor. He gets a room, and I'm with him, and then they tell me, like, if his oxygen level is this, or this alarm goes off, let us know, call somebody, hit the call button. I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting there with him, and I'm just like hugging him, and I'm telling him I'm sorry. And all the time, like, the doctors is questioning me. Then this, like, abuse and neglect specialist doctors, she called herself, coming in the next morning. She asking me, you know, what happened. I'm telling her, and then she sees the Mongolian spots on him, because he was born with Mongolian spots, just as Dontrell was. Actually, all my kids have them. She sees them. She's like, can I do an examination? I'm like, yeah. And then, you know, she's looking at him all over. Then she's writing stuff down, and she's taking pictures on her phone. And I just knew, just like a mother's intuition, I just knew that I was screwed. I was fucked. They was taking my kids away. And so she gets through talking to me, and then she's asking me all these questions, and I'm telling her that the things that she's looking at are Mongolian spots. And she's like, you always seem to have an answer for every question that I give you. I'm like, I just took them to the doctor. You could ask their doctor. This is their doctor's name, blah, blah, blah. This is the phone number to the facility to get a hold of the doctor. She wouldn't listen to me. Throughout the time I was there, I think I was there for like a day or so. And then all that time I'm asking for updates. Nobody was telling me nothing. I had to go down to get an MRI with him. They let me do that. He had to get an MRI. They getting their scans and they blood work and all they tests and stuff. And then, like, this social worker comes in, and I was like, are they gonna take my son from me? She was like, we don't know, we're still like getting tests and everything, but everything's gonna be okay. And then she said, even if they do, just know that it's not the end of the road. There's a light at the end of the tunnel or something like that. And then she said that, I knew something wasn't up. And then I spoke to this chaplain, because I just needed prayer, because I just knew that, me being a young mom, and then I'm not going to make this about race, but I know that this happens to a lot of African American families or Mexicans, especially people on welfare, like food stamps and Section 8. It's like CPS just got you on a radar. Like, it's just weird, you know. But all the time I'm there, I just know something ain't right. They not telling me nothing. They sitting here like trying to hurry up and talk so they can leave the room, you know. And then I remember, like, the last day I was there, my sister came and visited me on the first or second night, I can't remember, with her boyfriend and her 3 daughters. And they visited with me and they prayed with me, and it was like, no, they're not going to take them. Stay positive, sis. And so they visited me. Next morning comes around, the doctors come around to do their rounds. And then that social worker comes back, and she like, oh, you have a hearing, and I lived a county over, so the county that I lived in, she's like, there's a hearing at 3 o'clock, blah, blah, blah. You should probably get to that soon. So I remember the doctors, it was like a lot of doctors and nurses came in to check my son and do vital signs and stuff like that. And then I remember, so my friend came to take me, because she came up to visit me, and I said there's a hearing in the county that I lived in. I said the name of the county, but I'm not going to say it on social media. But she was like, okay, I'll take you, whatever. And then I just remember asking the staff if I could hug my son before I left. And I remember just grabbing his little foot, because they didn't really let me close to him. And I grabbed his little foot, and I was like rubbing his toe. Oh my God, this is the next worst part. I was like, Martine, I love you, buddy. Mommy loves you, okay? I'll be back. I'll be back to see you, okay? Mommy will be back, okay? I love you. And then I like walked out. Let me just step back for a second. I remember when the social worker came in, I did tell her, I said, if you take my kids from me, please don't embarrass me. I don't want to be embarrassed or humiliated. Please don't humiliate me. So I guess that was their way of like, you know, quietly getting me away from my son. And then once I left the hospital, somebody informed me that I wasn't no longer allowed back up there. Obviously that the situation had got back to my worker that I had a week prior. She was still on my case. The case was open still. So then I get to the courthouse and I get inside the courtroom and everybody is there, and like CPS, the CPS side was there and me, I'm over there, and then my friend was next to me. And then all I hear is they like, court is in session, and then I hear the workers say, we want a petition for removal. And I'm like, oh my God, what does that mean? Are they taking my son? And then like when the court hearing was over, I'm like, what does that mean? What is removal? She's like, oh, unfortunately, I'm so sorry. I thought everything was good. I was about to close your case, but the hospital kept blowing my email up and blowing up my phone. And I'm so sorry, Miss Rodriguez, but we have to take your kids away. And I was like so devastated. And I knew that my oldest son was with his godparents. And I was like, wow. And it was like, you're not allowed to see them or come up to them. If you see them in public, you have to look the other way. And I wasn't allowed to see them for 14 days straight. So I was devastated. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. Like, I was just laying in bed, just looking up at the ceiling, crying and asking God, like, to forgive me, telling God I'm sorry, to help me get my kids back. I'm gonna just fast forward. I got an attorney because I couldn't afford one, so the court gave me one. I signed up, fill out paper at the end of the first court hearing. I got an attorney. I met with him. He got me visitation with my kids, but during that time, I only had like an hour or 2 hours visitation. That shit flew by so fast. I would take pictures with them because I wanted to know if they was okay. I wanted to know what they looked like, just in case like I came back and there was bruises or something, because like I didn't trust foster care. I heard so many nightmare stories and stuff about it. So I would take pictures and then put my phone down and hang out with my kids and kiss them and hug on them. And then the visits would be over, and then I would go to my court hearings like once a month. And then I remember, I think I saw my son like twice. And then I remember showing up to a hearing like a month in. And then my worker's like, Miss Rodriguez, sit down. I have to tell you something. And I was like, what the fuck? What do you gotta tell me? What did you do to my kids? What did you fucking do? Like, if you had not taken them, my kids wouldn't be hurt. Where are they at? What you do? And she was like, well, we've been trying to call you all weekend. And I was like, well, I was out and I left my phone at this administration building or whatever. Because I went up there to try to get my son's birth certificate, because you know it takes a while after they born to process it, and then it gets mailed out to you. So I tried to go get his birth certificate, and I ended up setting my phone down on the counter, and I didn't know. So I'm trying to trace where my phone was. I was without my phone the whole weekend. So she like, we've been trying to get a hold of you over the weekend while the foster parents that accepted your kids, they had to go on vacation, so they had to go with a respite foster home. So a respite foster home is like a foster care. They're licensed to foster and like kind of like babysit. So they got like double the license. So they put them in a respite foster home until the assigned foster parents got back from vacation. So she was like, well, over the weekend, Dontrell got attacked by a dog, and he had to go to the hospital and get stitches, and he's all gauzed up and bandages up. So I just don't want you to be scared and be shocked. I wanted you to know. And I was like, what the actual fuck? Like, y'all call yourself Child Protective Services, but y'all took my kids, and now my son got his face ripped apart by a dog? Are you fucking kidding me? And I was like, nah, let me go see my kids. Let me see my kids right now. And so she let me go in there, and my son just looked like so swollen, and I was crying, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, buddy. I'm so sorry. Mommy couldn't be there to protect you. I'm so sorry. And I just felt like just my decision making just got my kids hurt, and they got taken from me, and they got put in harm's way. So fast forward, I end up like going through the court process. It took me 10.5 months to regain custody. I went to every court hearing. I went to every visitation. I took like 2 sets of parenting classes, because before I even got my kids taken away, I was already in parenting classes because I just wanted to do it, And then there was little perks, like I could get clothes and stuff. I could go to their little store and buy stuff with the little bucks that we get for participating. So I was already in parenting classes. They knew that, and then they assigned me parenting classes through the court system, because I guess they have their own company or agency that does parenting classes that's within approval for the court. So then I went through counseling, because they always make you do counseling. They made me do a psychological exam to check my mental, to see if I was competent to take care of my kids, because they deemed me a threat, because they tried to say I strangled or attempted to strangle my son, because when I was trying to give them the stories, I guess my story wasn't adding up, because I was freaking out because my freaking son almost died in front of me. So I forgot to tell them that the blanket was on top of him, and when my oldest son, Dontrell, fell on top of his brother, Martine, the blanket went over him, and he lost oxygen within the amount of seconds that he was on top of him. The blanket like kind of suffocated him a little bit. So his brain lost oxygen, causing him to have, like, I guess he was having a seizure. And that's what was going on. So they said my story wasn't adding up. So they deemed me a threat and a danger to my kids. That's why they kept me away from them for 14 days, the first 14 days. I went through visitations. My visitations over time was like, it went from 2 hours to 3 hours. Then it went to 3 hours to 4 hours, and then like after that, I started getting overnights. Once the overnights was good, I started getting like the weekend visits. Everything was good. Mind you, the whole time I had to come with a diaper bag with food, bottles, formula, diapers, like as if I was parenting them the whole time. I had to provide that during my visitations. I was responsible for their meals, the bottles, formula. I was still having to get formula. They took my stamps away, so it was kind of hard for me to eat through those 10.5 months. I was living under HUD housing, which is kind of like Section 8, but it's not Section 8. Certain properties have HUD housing, certain have Section 8, then certain of them have Section 8 vouchers that you have to get, and they'll accept them. So I was under HUD. I had a nice townhouse. I found out through my landlord that I could have lost my townhouse, and I should have, but he was nice. He didn't tell the management that I was going through a case. He did a hypothetical, and then they told him that technically I was supposed to be kicked out, but then they told him, let's see how her case goes, and if she loses custody, we gotta ask her to leave, because you need kids to live under welfare housing, stuff like that. So it took 10.5 months. I was at every doctor's appointment, every visit. Like, it was like just crazy. So I went through that, and the judge was proud of me. And at first they said it was it went from like being an unfit mom to improper supervision to like she just didn't have a lot of help, and she was a single mom with not a lot of help. And the judge was so proud of me. He like came off the little thing that he sits at, and he shook my hand, and he said, congratulations. I've never seen a parent actually survive the process of getting their kids back and regaining custody. They always like somehow quit, or it gets overwhelming, and they don't thug out the process. They don't, just go through the process. They always like stop, and they lose their kids to the system permanently. I even had issues with the foster family. They was doing stuff, especially the foster mom. Like, I'm not going to get deep into that, but she was doing some things that was not nice. I had my attorney. I had an incident where I almost got strangled during my foster care open case, and they found out about that, and they tried to use that against me, trying to say I was an unfit mom and try to prolong my kids' foster care stay. But I ended up getting them back. I prayed to God every day. I just was like, God, please, because they was trying to have my rights taken. I got my kids taken on 9/11 of 2018, September 11, 2018. They was trying to have my rights stripped permanently by November 1st of 2018. Y'all know how quick that is? September, October, November. That's literally like not even 2 whole months later. But God was on my side. I definitely am traumatized by it. I do have my condition is based on, a lot of doctors like to say it's based on trauma and things like that. And if it is, like, this does haunt me, because like I have seizures and stuff, and like that does mess with me, because hubby's back at work now, because you know they're taking all these government workers jobs, and they're like telling him he has to be back in the office, so he's not there to help me, and that scares the shit out of me. Like, what if I confide in the wrong person and CPS shows up to my door, and like, what if I'm not lucky next time to get my kids back? Like, I am forever like tormented and traumatized by my experience with the court system. I had my worker telling me that I was an unfit mom, that the foster parents where they was living at was rich and they had a nice house and it was better than mine, and I was undeserving of my kids. She tried to tell me my kids was going to grow up and then their kids was going to go to foster care. You know, she's like, your cycle's going to continue. She used to like put me down. I even had my kid's attorney at the time was a lady, the one who said I was an unfit mother, and to make sure the workers was in the room with me, never leave me unsupervised, because I had supervised visits for a long time. She was just talking very badly of me. She called me a mother. She was like, you're a baby raising 2 babies. And I was like, what you trying to say? And she was like, I wouldn't say I wouldn't say anything that I could use against you in court. They had a detective trying to show up to my house, trying to arrest me and put me in jail. Like, it was bad. Like, I never want this to happen to anybody. And I hope that y'all that are fighting court cases currently, don't give up on your kids. Like, don't do it. Like, make sure you show up on time. Like, just don't give up on your kids, because it's not worth it. Don't let your worker get to your head. Don't let them bully you. And I know people got drug problems and stuff like that, but it's definitely worth, cracking down on your addiction, whatever addiction you may have. It's definitely worth it. Don't give up on your kids, because you're going to regret it later. And sometimes I'm stressed out and I be like, why did I fight for my kids? But I have to remember that I fought for them for a reason. And my kids can't help that they wild and obnoxious and everything like that. They can't help it. But it's like, I fought for my kids because I wanted to see them grow up. And I didn't want them to be like me, because I was in foster care too growing up. I didn't grow up in foster care. Luckily, I was adopted, but then that adoption failed and I went back to foster care. Then I got adopted again, and then that family didn't treat me the best. So like, I really had a horrible experience. That's why I have no faith in the foster care system. I'm gonna just put that out there right now. I don't want nothing to do with it. I'm never gonna be a foster parent. I ain't talking bad about, any parents that may be in my comments. Maybe y'all could tell me some good stories and stuff, but honestly, I haven't seen any good stories come out of foster care. I will not support foster care. I don't want to get paid from it. I don't want nothing to do with it. But I'm just glad I fought for my kids. I'm glad God was on my side. It was definitely a hard road, a tough road, a traumatizing road, but